Have you ever noticed? The men who say the least often leave the strongest impression. They don't chase. They don't explain. They don't beg for attention. Yet somehow, people lean in wondering who they are. If you've ever felt like you're always trying too hard, always the one texting first, always the one waiting for a reply, maybe it's not effort that's pushing people away. Maybe it's energy. I still remember a man I saw once in a small cafe. He sat quietly at the corner table, sipping his coffee. He wasn't flashy, didn't speak, didn't even make eye contact with anyone. But the entire room noticed him. Women glanced his way. Men gave him space. He didn't need to perform, his presence did all the talking. And I thought to myself, what makes someone magnetic without saying a word? That question changed everything. Because somewhere along the way, we've been taught that chasing equals caring. That the more available you are, the more someone will want you. So we overtext. We overexplain. We try harder. But all that chasing, it does something subtle. It tells the other person, I need you to choose me. And neediness is the opposite of attraction. Chasing makes you smaller. It turns your energy outward, constantly looking for validation. It shifts the power dynamic. You're no longer the one choosing, you're the one hoping to be chosen. And when that happens, people sense it, instantly, subconsciously, and they pull away, because attraction doesn't grow in pressure. It grows in space. But what if you stopped? What if you pulled all that energy back into yourself? What if, instead of chasing, you became something and someone that others naturally gravitate toward? That's where silence comes in. Not the silence of passivity, but the silence of power. A man who doesn't need to prove himself speaks little, but when he does, every word lands. He doesn't explain. He doesn't justify. He simply is. Still. Focused. Present. That's the essence of what the Stoics understood. They taught that peace isn't the absence of chaos. It's the mastery of it. That real strength isn't explosive. It's steady. Think of Marcus Aurelius, not just an emperor but a man of letters. While commanding armies, he also journaled about humility, self-restraint, discipline. His strength wasn't loud. It was rooted. And when you embody that, you don't chase, because chasing comes from emptiness. But presence comes from fullness. That's why the man who attracts in silence doesn't need to say a word. And the beauty of it is this. When you stop needing to be seen, people start seeing you. It's not about pretending, not about playing hard to get. It's about becoming so grounded, so centered in who you are, that your presence speaks louder than words ever could. Real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with noise or demand applause. It simply enters the room and shifts the energy. You've seen it before. The guy who doesn't say much, but when he moves, people notice. When he speaks, the room leans in. It's not luck. It's not charisma. It's self-respect expressed through silence. That's the part most men miss. They think attraction is about doing, saying the right thing, texting at the right time, keeping up with some imaginary checklist. But all of that is noise, if you're not someone worth listening to in the first place. So the question is, who are you in the quiet? When no one's watching, what are you building? What are you becoming? Because here's the secret. People feel it. They feel the difference between someone who's full inside and someone who's trying to be liked. The man who trains in silence, grows in silence, disciplines himself when no one's around, that man walks into a room differently. Not because he's better, but because he's built. And that's what draws people in. You don't need to chase when you are the thing they're looking for. Because what pulls people in isn't the flash. It's the weight of a man who doesn't move to impress, but only when it matters. The weight of someone who doesn't fill silence with words, because he's already filled it with presence. And women, they feel it more than anyone. They don't say it out loud, but they're drawn to mystery. Not the kind you fake, but the kind that comes from a man who knows himself so well he doesn't feel the urge to overshare. He doesn't need to post his wins. He doesn't need to broadcast his plans. He just keeps moving quietly, purposefully. That's why chasing never works. Because it removes the mystery. It puts everything out in the open. Here's what I want. Here's why I need you. And just like that, the dance is over. But when you hold something back, not out of manipulation but out of fullness, when you stay grounded in your purpose and don't reach for validation, people start to wonder, who is he really? What's behind that calm? And that question, that tension, is where attraction lives. So instead of filling silence, sit in it. Instead of proving worth, live it. Let your eyes speak more than your mouth. Let your stillness carry weight. Because in a world full of noise, stillness becomes rare. And what's rare is irresistible. You see, the world doesn't reward noise, it rewards weight, substance, depth. The kind of depth that can't be faked with words or polished with charm. And this is where most men stumble. They think walking away is weakness. They think silence means surrender. But it's the opposite. Walking away when something no longer serves your peace. That's strength. Choosing not to argue when you could destroy someone with your words. That's power. Because when you stay in situations just to be liked, or just to not be alone, you give away pieces of yourself. Slowly, quietly, until one day you look in the mirror and realize you've been chasing something that was never running toward you. But the Stoic man, he knows when to stay and when to step back, not out of bitterness, not to prove a point, but because his worth isn't tied to someone else's reaction. His value isn't a vote. It's a decision he already made within himself. That's why his silence is so loud. It's not empty. It's not passive. It's full of choice. So the next time someone pulls away, let them. The next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. Because you're not here to chase. You're here to attract. Through who you are, not through how loud you shout. And when you understand that, deeply, you start to walk differently. You start to see the world not as something to win over, but something that naturally aligns with your presence. And when that shift happens, everything changes. You no longer wake up wondering who likes you. You wake up wondering who you want to become today. The focus turns inward, not in ego, but in mastery. Quiet mastery. Because the man who is building himself in silence, training when no one's watching, sharpening his mind, strengthening his discipline, building his world, that man becomes impossible to ignore. Not because he shows off, but because his life starts to show for him. There's something magnetic about a man who's clearly moving forward, yet says very little. It makes people curious. It makes them wonder, what's he up to? What does he know that I don't? And that curiosity, that invisible pull, is far more powerful than any words you could say. This is why attraction isn't something you chase. It's something you become. Every book you read in silence, every workout you complete without a post, every night you choose sleep over scrolling, it adds up, quietly, invisibly, until one day, they'll look at you and say, there's something different about him, and they'll be right, because while everyone else was chasing noise, you were building gravity. And by then, you won't even need the recognition. You'll walk into a room not to be seen but simply to be, and still, people will notice. They'll feel it in how you carry yourself, in how you don't rush, in how you don't flinch, in how you move with purpose, even in silence. You've become the man who doesn't chase, because he's too busy choosing his path, choosing his peace, choosing who gets access to his world, not out of pride but out of clarity. Because when you understand your worth, you stop handing it out like candy. And here's the final truth. The world is drawn to clarity, to men who know who they are and don't need to explain it, to men who don't chase energy, but radiate it. So you no longer ask, how do I attract them? You ask, am I becoming someone worth being drawn to? And when the answer is yes, you won't need to chase, because everything meant for you will find its way, in silence, with gravity, and with strength that speaks louder than words ever could.